Up world? What's happening? For the live stream, for the playback, what's happening, folks? Let me get things started over here on the other end. I can go live on the TikTok side of the game. Excuse me. There we go. We live, and I just got to get them in order. Let me get my window in order. Crop this down for the folk. And today, well, TikTok won't be able to see it this way. Huh. Oh well. We'll just do this. Okay. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do that. This. And so, what are we going to be talking about today as I keep messing up my crop situation over here? What are we going to be talking about today? Well, I didn't want to leave you all gone too long before I came back with something. So your boy had to go and really, when you crop like that, that's gonna keep happening. This is wild. Okay, I'll do this. I didn't want to leave you all too long without your boy giving you something to watch. So here I am. What's up, Monet? How you doing? Thanks for the hearts. Thanks for the heart. Me, how you doing? Let me do this. Let me do this. Make that better. Now, TikTok, what's up, Badu? How you doing this evening? How you doing? How you doing? Um, People coming up in, it's getting going slowly but surely. And if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or nobody watches Facebook, what's up, Carmen Lloyd? How you doing? She's over there on the YouTube side. If you're watching on YouTube, I have this new thing on here where now it says that you can stream in both landscape or horizontal. So I don't know. You can try that out if you want to try that out, but it should have a different variation of how you see it on your phone if you do it that way. What's up, Rashad? OG, what's happening? She said, "Happy to catch you live. Appreciate that." Yeah, and I need, I need to definitely be doing more. It's not that I haven't been working. It's I've been all over the place with. I have been a little busy with my business, but I've been all over the place. I mean, I found a lot of different stuff. Don't get me wrong, but like I was on the Harriet topic, which we'll talk a little bit about the Harriet topic and some stuff that I found there. And then just to kind of go into about everything in due time. No, that's real. Said chilling kinfolk. Hey, so and said good thanks. Yeah, so like I was like, okay, if I'm gonna give this Harriet Tubman thing the attention that it deserves, I've got to read because I've got to read a lot. So because after I listened to Dane Calloway's uh, assessment on it, saying what's going on, what's happening, Rich Royal Rebel, what's happening with it, what's happening with you, man? Appreciate you. So like when I started thinking about like the analysis that Dane Calloway gave, it's not that I don't believe it. I think there could be possibly more to the story. I do believe that she was fake as far as the caricature of Moses over our people who blah blah blah. Because even here we got. Let me see if it'll pull up easily or not just by putting it in there. I may have to find it, but we have a document in here where they talk about how she was called the Moses of her people due to her helping out the army, giving the army. I had to find that one, but regardless, we'll get to that. We'll get to the receipts. You know about how she was helping out the army, and that's why she was called Moses. So like this whole caricature, and also the fact that I never really see her and the Underground Railroad listed together until after a book is written by this YT lady named Sarah Bradford, I think. So you know, it really made me start thinking about a lot. I mean, a lot of things are fishy. So I was like, okay. The main thing now too is people saying that she may not even exist as a person, period. And so when I went to look up how many newspaper articles, because I was like, well, at this point, I kind of got to look at everything up until the point where she passed. And it said she didn't pass until like 1891 or something like that. And so I was like, man, I got to really look at newspapers from 1865 to 1891. And it had a whole hell of a lot of them. And that's not just because it had a lot of results, doesn't mean that the results corroborate that she's real. What I mean by that is I could just be like, oh man, look at all these results. She had to be real. They was typing about her, right? But propaganda speaks very loudly too, especially in the press. So I can't just go by that. And I'm like, I'm really gonna have to read a lot of these newspaper clippings. I gotta at least skim through. If I want to really get us a fair assessment, I gotta do a couple of things. I gotta read a lot of the newspaper articles. I gotta read the full books, which is only like two or three books that were written that I noticed around the time frame which Harriet was alive. Every book after that, it's not that I don't. I'm gonna look at them, but I'm only gonna flip through them for sources. Like if I flip through and it's nothing but words, well, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? But if I flip through and there's photographs of sources, then I'll give that a little bit of credence. But like, I don't want to listen to what somebody said about Harriet Tubman after that she died from 1891 and I really don't care about that. That's everybody speculating what happened during that time. And everybody that was in that time frame up from the point she was born, 1820 to about 1890. Um, I got to be able to read everything, and because I've seen so many documents, like now that we kind of got people up in here, and my contact is tripping. You'll see me putting eye drops in my eyes. My left contact, I probably need to take it out. To be honest, it's making it annoying. It's going to make it annoying to read. But so let's just get to some sources here. What was I talking about? I was saying Harriet Tubman. Oh yeah, yeah, the letters. So when you got letters written and they're in the government archive, it's not to say that the letter can't be faked. But you got letters, you got newspaper clippings, you got articles, you got this, that, and the third, you got affidavits, and I understand Dane Calloway's assessment of the affidavits that he found, and how some of them may show where it may be like where there's a lawyer that's attached to it that they're supposed to be getting these proceeds, and may have been the run to have drawn up these affidavits. Some of the wording is a little bit off in the affidavit to make it seem like somebody else is writing it. Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I take that all into account. So it's like it's not to say that fraud in her name may not have been going on, but is I'm still hung up on, is Harriet a real person, and they used her just like they said in the army as a spy, scout, nurse, and all this other stuff, and she really helped move some niggas from here. And when people hear me say move them up all the way to Canada, now at the time I ain't gonna lie, I did forget that you couldn't uh that there was a law against supposedly, fugitive slaves laws, but you still got to think about it though, because I mean the North is against the South at this time in a sense, right? I guess they just kind of distancing themselves a little bit from them, but it's like you have this North that gives Harriet Tubman all kinds of help. They gave her access to routes, provisions, blah blah blah, to be able to move around and all this other stuff. So you got a military that supposedly is okay with you moving slaves around. Then you got a bunch of so-called YT folks in random houses And you got to think about it too. In random houses all throughout the North, and you got to think how far she had to. Let me just do this so I can draw a line. How long she had to travel. I mean, just think if you had to travel. Just think. Well, actually, she picked up people in the Carolinas. Okay, so let's just say if I was going to travel from here to goddamn Canada, will it let me easily get my directions? Let's do this from here to North Carolina. Now that's a bus. It says it's about a 12-day walk. That's to me, I'm actually kind of surprised that it's only a 12-day walk. Now, is it really a 12-day walk when you really got to go through woods and all this other stuff, waiting in houses and all this other stuff? I don't know. I can't say it's impossible. After looking at the days on this, I can't say that it's impossible. But what I will say is this: you're passing up a lot of areas in the north, and it's like if a big portion of the north at this time is against slavery in the south, how come they're so eager to just send them back to the south when they catch them? They're like, well, they were slave catchers up there in the north. Like, it ain't like niggas is just riding around in today's time and they tag is out. You know what I'm saying? And there's a heavy police presence and you're gonna easily get picked up. Like, this is rural areas and woods and some cities. Don't get me wrong, we have cities, but you could be easily in rural areas that you can never be seen. You know, you had to go all the way to Canada, you know, and out of all the so-called YT homes that's in between this route, none of them thought that hey, yeah, you could just kind of kick it here and work for me and you'll be good. Nobody really comes out here, what like it just the story is just all over the place. But I'm gonna make it even more all over the place for you today. What's up, Amor? She said upstate New York, not far from Canada where I live, they claim to have participated in the underground. Mm, that's walking for 24 hours. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That is walking for 24 hours straight, direct. That's 12-day walk with modern roads. Yeah, and that's if that's yeah, yeah. No, that's real talk. And so it really makes you wonder, was this really, really possible? Now I'm gonna fuck the game up a little bit here for you. We're gonna move into some receipts that I found about the Underground Railroad. Because one thing that's got me all over the place is in the newspapers, you got tons of mentions about this Underground Railroad. Okay. Almost hardly of them mention Harriet Tubman in them bitches. But you got a bunch of references to it. So then I'm starting to wonder, like, now I gotta do a lot more due diligence on trying to figure out what this Underground Railroad is about. My bad. I'm trying to find that receipt. What that Underground Railroad is about. What's the difference between the Underground Railroad and how come it's not as attached to Harriet as it should be? What's the whole situation? What? So as I'm looking for, where the hell is that damn? Give me a second. Let me find my little receipt. Oh, here we go. Here we go. No, not this one. Not this one. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. The Canada Negroes. Sorry, I'm a little congested. The Canada Negroes. Practical operations of the Underground Railroad. Now, this comes from 1860. The first time I find, let's just show because we're here. The first time in the newspapers, Harriet Tubman. So the first time you're gonna find Harriet Tubman listed in the newspapers at all is not 1833, because those aren't hers. Talking about Harriet something Porter. The first time you really find her name mentioned is in 1860 in the newspapers. All right. and that's in a newspaper called The Liberator. And from what we saw here, it does talk about Harriet Tubman. It says, "Why there is more free blood in the little finger of a Margaret Garner or a Harriet Tubman that could be wrung from the watery veins of all those oppressed and the oppressing whites in the land." And an applause. I really didn't understand what the hell they was talking about on that, to be honest with you. And I believe I read some of this going back, and it didn't really give me a whole lot of context. So I was like, okay, whatever, and it ain't really talking about Harriet Tubman like that. So I was like, so the first one didn't really make sense whatsoever. The second thing we saw with her in it was her being a part of a committee. The committee of what? Relief of fugitives in Canada. Okay. So first things I really see about her is talking about helping people to Canada, which that's what they said the story is, right? So but she's on, she's ahead of this committee. It doesn't say she's working the Underground Railroad, but let's just read it for you. Says Relief of Fugitives in Canada. An association has been formed in the town of St. Catharines, Niagara District, Canada West, to relieve such fugitive slaves as may be suffering from sickness or destitution. It is called the Fugitive Aid Society of St. Catharines. The officers are the following: you got the president, whatever, and then you got the committee. Okay, this association may be relied on as worthy of confidence by those who wish to help the fugitives in Canada, many of whom are undoubtedly in need of such aid. Now, notice they're talking about fugitives. A fugitive is usually a criminal that's on the run, right? Let's just look up the word fugitive because, to be honest, that's what I thought. But let me just look it up because thinking ain't gonna get you too far sometimes. When it comes to definition, sometimes you got to make sure you look it up. Fugitive, one who flees, a runaway, a fugitive from justice, an outlaw from fugitive. Old French also was used as a noun meaning fugitive person. Commonly also was used as a noun meaning a runaway, fugitive, slave, deserter. Okay, so the reason why I'm getting into that and wanted to look that up is because let me go back here. I was like, where was that? You're talking about not every slave is a fugitive, right? If they're aiding slaves, why do you call them fugitives? They're not fugitives until you go get them off the motherfucking plantation. So I guess you are pre-sub. I guess you're just going ahead and throwing the term on them that they're gonna be a fugitive. Let me see what you said. Hold on, let me look over here. Said that 12-day walk in the mountain. Said the Underground Railroad story sounds even more ridiculous now that the child trafficking tunnels have been more public, which is probably why it's hard to make a connection to her. She was just the face put out in the front of a cause. And that's what we're gonna see here too. Because when I go, appreciate that, Tania. Like when I show you what they wrote about the Underground Railroad Society over here and how they would just sometimes pick up a gang of Negroes random in New York and parade them around for money to help. Like, hey, we got some fugitive slaves right here, guys. Like, when I read this, I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. Along with how this person talks about how the people were being treated. So this person says that the Underground Railroad is true, but it really talks against the society, against it in certain things. Now, I don't believe everything that I read, right? I'm just reading these things and just going by what of a preponderance of information I find about these topics. But now, as far as what Tania was just saying, appreciate the gifts as well. Appreciate the gift also, Tania and B for All and Tyron and Meta. I didn't see you in there. Hey, what's up, Meta? Appreciate the gifts, all of y'all, and Badu. Uh, so my thing is, Dane Calloway got into that. He said this was likely those pneumatic trains, and I'm not against that idea. I'm also not against the whole idea of the underground tunnels or the other underground things, cities and things of that such that could have been used to maybe make this happen. But I also have questions about this society as well as the Harriet Tubman. So let's go. We're gonna start reading pieces of this. Okay. As you can see, I've been through it. I done marked it up. Let's go. Let me see if I want to. I'm gonna read through this part pretty quick, and then we'll slow it down on because I want y'all to have some of this context. All right. It says, while the fanatical abolition. Hold on. I got to get my goddamn. I got to get my pointer. Move you to the side though. All right. While the fanatical abolition agitators are carrying on their nefarious system of running slaves into Canada and endangering the highest interest of the country with their raids upon the South, few are aware of the real conditions of abandonment, destitution, and misery in which the Negroes, enticed from the warm South, exist in the northern residents. Public attention has lately been called to this state of the things by the letter of Colonel Prince and recent discussions of the subject in the Canadian Parliament, which is laid blah blah blah. That's kind of going into that. But one thing I will say right here about these Negroes. Now, when I see these Negroes, especially when you talk about these Negroes going to Canada, what's up, CR the Great? Especially when you talk about said Sport is Key. Appreciate that, Meta. Especially when you talk about these Negroes going to Canada. I can't even lie. The first thing I thought when I saw that she was taking so-called Negroes from here to Canada, and some were coming from South Carolina, I thought they may have been some of the black or melanated Briton loyalists from like the Book of Negroes, like I showed y'all before. I don't want to move from this spot. I can do this, so I don't lose that. Book of Negroes, like when I showed y'all the whole thing on the Book of Negroes, and this whole Book of Negroes, I showed y'all the actual book in the government archives that actually shows the manifest and all this other stuff like this is what it actually looks like. So I actually showed y'all that. So, and then of course when we take into account that these Negroes, I don't want to lose my other spot. We can do this. Watch, I'm gonna find it this way, I do not want to lose my spot. Oops. All right, Otis should be the first one. Oh shit, where you at? Negro, we'll put the N in there. Really? Where you at? I may just have to get off my damn what you call it. Literally was the first one that would pull up every time I would do this particular search. Here he goes right here. All right. This is part of it. But long story short, I had to show that because this is 1743. So in 1743, we know the Negroes they're talking about are likely the melanated Negroes from the book of Negroes, or they could be Negroes melanated from whatever other place besides Britain. But we know likely these are those Negroes, and likely the Indians. It's not likely the Indians they're talking about for sure are us. The Negroes they're talking about at this time are them. Now, the reason why I wanted to show this is because when we get here and they're talking about Negroes, I want to keep the same idea, but we're talking about 1860 now. We're talking about 120 years later. So now we kind of got a thinking mind of indoctrination. Are these Britain loyalist Negroes? Likely not. Those people were shipped off by 1793. But were there some leftover melanated Europeans still here? Yes, of course. Were there some possible Africans out? Barely, but where we started, where we now being known as Negroes in these people's heads? Yeah. By 1860, they had already been putting us in schools and churches together in 1743, propagating the Bible through areas and blah, blah, blah. So, looking at the mind of a YT person here, I would say he might be brainwashed. So, I can't really say what kind of Negro this is. But I just had to go into that. I really did, because it's something to keep in mind. But it says it is with a few of investigating these points of so much interest at the present moment, and for the purpose of laying before its readers all the information which can be obtained bearing upon the questions how now agitating the country. I'm sorry, that the Herald details a special correspondent to Canada to examine the practical working of the Underground Railroad system, the prospects and conditions of the Negro in the province, the influence of the importation of fugitive slaves upon the property and upon the public morals, and the character of the various schemes in operation and professionally in the improvement and amelioration of the condition of the black race. Okay, so they're going pretty much in. Okay, so this is going to be where it gets interesting. All right, let me switch this. It says in the principal cities of the state of New York, in New York, Albany, Utica, Syracuse. I did work in Utica for like 7 months. Rochester, Buffalo, and other places. Regular agents are located, and subscriptions are solicited and collected all year round to help poor fugitives from the South on their road to Canada to freedom. So, what are they saying? Agents are out here publicly posting these signs saying that they're looking, and subscriptions are people in newspapers saying that they're looking to solicit help for people to help these poor fugitives from the South on their road to Canada and freedom. Okay. Well, so far it seems fine. The amount thus accumulated is almost incredible, and the names of the charitable donors, if published, would astonish the world. Governors, senators, editors, lawyers, merchants, and a lot of the course of politicians swell the capital stocks of the Underground Railroad. See, to me, you got senators, lawyers, governors, and editors sitting here funding this. So why send them all the way up to Canada? If the highest niggas in the land damn near think that it's okay to get them away from the South, why must I take them all the way to Canada instead? Yeah, get them away from here. I don't want to buy me, but take them niggas to Canada. You know what I'm saying? That's why I don't really go through. You said I'm skipping. Oh, might have been skipping for you. I had to check my temperature on my computer. Said it's fixed now for y'all. Okay, okay. Appreciate that. Look, so it must have been skipping for both of y'all. I elevated my computer. Hopefully it doesn't overheat on me. Uh, but yes, okay. So yes, you have. Yes, you know they love to group us together. Yeah, exactly, Carmen. And that's, and you got, at some point you got to read these things with that in mind, that these white folks, that's about as far as they gonna do. They gonna group us all together to a degree. I don't want to say that so loosely, but yeah, to a degree. Us and those melanated ones from Europe, likely so. Us and the Africans, not so much, not so much. But maybe a few times, maybe a few times. Chief, maybe I was doing that for you, man. Or speaks for you. Okay, cool. I hate that it's doing that, but I got an elevator. Hope I may have to put a fan on this bitch. Y'all gonna hear this fan going. Y'all got to keep this motherfucker from overheating. MacBook Pro bullshit. Goddamn Apple do better. Okay, but okay. So you got all these people putting in capital. You know what I'm saying, on this Underground Railroad project. How about y'all just let them stay? But okay, like what it looks like now is you're funding some type of, that's the public way you're saying you're doing it, but you're funding a way to get these niggas out the country. Because as we know, Think about this same time frame, but between before 1860, between 1830 and 1860, and even before then, they're moving out Indians. They're moving Indians all the time. But y'all niggas need to move to the west of the Mississippi. Y'all niggas need to move that way. Y'all need to go to Oklahoma. Y'all niggas need to go up north. So it's not like it's a far-fetched thing to think like, is this y'all trying to? And don't forget the American Colonization Society, where they send niggas to Africa. So is it really such a far stretch for me to be thinking, are they trying to send niggas to Canada like that too? Like, are y'all just, you know what I'm saying? This Underground Railroad is just a little trickery for y'all niggas to send niggas off who's the Indians on out the country to make way for y'all. That's why I'm like, some people in my what up, Darvin? I said peace and love. What up, La La Land? So that's why I was like, appreciate the I didn't even see you. Appreciate the gifts there, Darby. Appreciate that. I didn't even look that way. And appreciate the give La La Land and CR the Great. Appreciate that. So and Chief Mimi, sorry, I missed some names. So it's not like it's such a crazy thing to think, you know what I'm saying? And in my own, since I've been making these like Harriet Tubman videos, I've been getting a few different haters, you know what I'm saying, on Twitter and YouTube. And everybody got something smart to say, but that's perfectly fine because I know y'all haven't dug into these documents either. So do you think I'm gonna feel some kind of way, even if I made the mistake and was like, how come they didn't keep them in the North? And everybody's like, fugitive slave laws. I get it. Okay, I didn't get to that yet, but at the same time, I still don't like that's. You can just throw that out there, and I'm just supposed to believe that. Am I not supposed to look at these documents? Am I not supposed to look in the newspaper? Am I not supposed to think critically about what I'm reading? So let's keep going before I get off into too many tangents. What up, Rico Mills? What up, Mike P? So it says, so you got all these people putting in this money on this railroad. Okay, scarcely a week passes without witnessing a band of Negroes of from 3 to a dozen paraded quietly. I'm gonna keep that highlighted a little bit different. From 3 to a dozen, because we might watch like a little. Did I save that clip? We might yeah. Let me send this motherfucking clip over. These niggas be bullshit, man. Hold on. Cause you know what? We're gonna play this real quick for a laugh. Because where did these niggas get this shit? Where did these niggas get these stories? They coming up with all this information about what they want to say happened to Harriet Tubman. And I'm like, where the hell did you read this shit, man? When did Harriet tell y'all this shit? Let me pull this out here for y'all. We're gonna take a quick break from the newspapers. And I'm gonna have to watch the whole documentary. I haven't watched it yet. I started to watch it. Whoops. I started to watch the documentary, and something happened. I got busy or something. Hold on.
She led so many people out of slavery, like the Moses of old. She led them out on what they call the Underground Railroad. Of course, you understand, it wasn't a real railroad at all. It was a network of people who, like Harriet, believed that it was okay for slaves to escape from slavery. 90, 100 miles of walking late at night through swamps, through woods, been chased by dogs sometime.
Oh yeah, 90, 100 miles. And remember, we just showed how many days. I mean, how long it takes. It said about 12 days. That's doing it 24 hours. He just said only so many miles a day. And I forgot I read this. They said somewhere she could only travel on certain days and certain times or some shit. So now it's even further on how much time. But okay, let's let this dude keep going on with his little bullshit.
And don't you know, sometimes people would get scared and want to go back, but Harriet, she always kept a 6-shooter strapped to her side underneath her skirt. When they got to getting nervous and scared, she'd pull that 6-shooter out and say, all right, you move on or you'll die. and everybody would move on.
Where in the fuck did he read that? Let me just make sure I ain't tripping. I'm gonna pull up Sarah Bradford's book because I'm like, wait a minute. And for what y'all, for if y'all didn't hear what he said that Harriet Tubman would carry a pew pew in her under her skirt, and if any of these slaves, which she just helped to freedom, and is sending them up north and blah blah blah, if they all of a sudden got too tired or whatever, she pull it out on them and be like, you either gonna go up to Canada or you gonna be unalive. That sounds pretty harsh. That sounds like you forcing me to go to Canada. Even though I don't even know where the hell you read this, and you probably just added this to the story because somebody put you in the spotlight. Oh, you want me to tell a story of Harriet Tubman? Oh shit. I I gotta add some stuff to this because y'all don't know the real story. Ah, nigga, no, just tell the story. Okay. Oh, what's the name of the book? Goddamn. Let me just put Harriet Tubman. It may not come up with that way though, but hold up. Like I mean, because as I've watched some of these documentaries, I've watched other clips. I should say clips, and I'm gonna watch some more documentaries. Um, I'm wondering where the hell these niggas got whatever the hell they read from. I'm like, nigga, where did you read this to tell you that this is what she said? And it's gonna get even more crazier than this. Scenes of Harriet Tubman by Sarah Bradford. He says she carried a six shooter, so we're gonna put the words shooter in here. Zero results for that. Gun. Oh, okay. Hold on. We got gun. When the armies and gunboats first appeared, that ain't got shit to do with her. General asked her at one time if she would go with several gunboats up the Combahee River. Combahee, that's a Indian term. But that ain't talking about her. At the site of gunboats. And another thing about gunboats, a lot of gunboats. No, you can't fit a gunboat under your goddamn skirt. So let's see. You know what? I'm not even gonna bore you. It's not in there. Okay. And did he read it from any other major source? I wish he would tell us. I don't know where these people just be coming up with stories, but let's keep going. Watch
She
this.
brought over 300 people out of slavery like that on the Underground Railroad and never lost a passenger.
Never loved the messenger. These people crazy. He just want to act.
Harriet Tubman was born Harriet Ross.
I thought she was born Araminta Ross. Let's just first start with that right there. I thought she was born Araminta Ross. Right? Notice how they can't even get the facts already off top. We just started the documentary. Literally, this was the beginning of the documentary. I was like, well, credibility going down already. Okay, but let's keep going. Y'all crazy. Oh, you said try Revolver? Okay, hold on. Let's try Revolver. Let me go back. That's a good one. Revolver. The revolver. Let's see. Then there was no remedy before us. The revolver carried by this bold and daring pioneer would be pointed at their heads. Dead niggas tell no tales, said Harriet. Hold on. I guess maybe this is where now think about it. Okay, dead nigga. Do you hold on? Let's read this. Let's read this. Cause this has got to be insane. Hold on. Let's get a little bit of context. Let me move this. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see that. Okay. We're going to start here. By night, she traveled many times on foot over mountains. Over mountains? Y'all going over mountains in this bitch? Through forests, across rivers, mid perils in lands, perils by water, perils from enemies, perils among false brethren. Sometimes a member of her party would become exhausted, footsore, bleeding, and declare they could not go on. They must stay there where they drop down and die. They must stay. Well, my bad. They must stay where they drop down and die. Others would think a voluntary return to slavery better than being overtaken and carried back. Huh. And then let's go up. And then it says, why is it not going up? Would insist upon returning. Then there was no remedy but force. The revolver carried by this bold and daring pioneer would be pointed at their heads. Dead niggers tell no tale, said Harriet. Go on or die. And so she compelled them to drag their weary limbs up their northward journey. At one time, she collected and sent on a gang of 39 fugitives. 39. But remember right here, it said they was coming here right here in red. That's why I circled it too. Well, I circled it because I was gonna double back to it. I didn't know I was gonna find this in this particular part. I was gonna circle back to it from another thing that talked about how many people. But notice he said typically they be coming in 3 to a dozen. But here you got Harriet talking about in this book that she had a band of what 39? Huh. Maybe but and she never lost a person. Huh, 39 minus. Okay, okay. Well, let's keep going. 39 fugitives in the care of others as some cause she was prevented from accompanying them. Sometimes when she and her party were concealed in the woods, they saw their pursuers pass on their horses and blah blah blah. So first of all, let's take into account what the guy said. He embellished the story or exaggerated the story. She would keep this revolver under her skirt. I don't know if the bitch had on a sorry, I don't want to say. I don't know if the lady had on a skirt or what the hell she had on. And let me put in the word skirt and dress in here. Well, I don't want to lose my spot, but let me put that in here just real quick. Let's see, skirt, dress. Probably will find dress, not skirt. Dress. You probably find dress. Four of them. Is it anywhere close to page 24? The closest to page 24 is page 40, which was well past that page. Bold of her dress, 2 or 3 or more down her back, a bad wig with a picket. So yeah, anyway, niggas still just making shit up. But we can say that he did say it was right, okay, as far as the revolver being pointed at them to make them go forward. But how come he didn't tell us the rest of that? Let me go back to it. How come he didn't tell us the part where she called them niggers? And do you think a person is come on now? Do you truly believe that a person that was sent to help people she truly loved and was risking her life in order to make sure they can taste a piece of freedom, you think she gonna call them niggers with the hard ER and point guns at them? And let's say this: after you've made, I'm gonna get caught up on y'all. After you've made several trips and niggas is really giving you that much problems that you have to carry your pew pew, why do you still keep doing it? Wouldn't you stop and be like, these niggas don't want me to keep going down there? They ain't ready for this. No, I must risk my life so I can tell these N words and get your ass on up to Canada. Let me see what y'all been saying, man. Hold on. You say, ain't nobody running through the Appalachian Mountains unequipped coming out alive, fam. That's true. You will at least, yeah, you will at least need to have you a few revolvers on you if you're going to be doing them. You make a good point there. One, she was called Moses, and two, the people would have rather went back to slavery. She hiking mountains with a skirt on, right? Yeah. She needed that just in case she got caught by somebody. She needed to look like a regular townsperson. It's okay to be African. These people have no life. I'm gonna go in these people's live stream and say something about it's okay to be African. Nobody's even talking about Africa, or booty scratches at all. But okay, hell no, not call them. Hell no, not call them the ears. Oh, like the hard ERs. Yeah, 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 yeah. She was abducting our people. Don't ain't that what it looked like? And then on top of this, I don't really like this book at all. And I'm gonna tell you why. Like when I went to one of these pages and it was supposed to be Harriet's own words. Where did it go? It was like in the 20s. But when she wrote it, is this it? Yeah, I think this is one. Hold up. All credibility gets shot when you do this. It says, "Well, Mrs. I'd go to the hospital. I would early every morning. I would early every morning. I did get a big chunk of ice. I would so she's I guess that's her talking, the white lady talking. But when you start typing like that about what a person is, how a person is talking, I know at that point your credibility is even more shot with me. They did that with the Geechees, right? They've done that now with goddamn Harriet Tubman. I got things on the Yamasi they did that with, and I also got there's another one. Yamasi's and there's another one, Geechees, Yamasi's, Harriet. There's another one I got where they did this. It's not coming to mind right now. But oh, Barracoon, when Zora Neale Hurston, where Kasola, his name Cudjo, uh, she wrote like that with him the whole time. Whole fake story. Okay, whole entire story is fake. So when I see this, it's already a red flag. Like nigga, because if even if I'm interviewing a person, I'm not gonna write down their speaking, the words that they misspeak. I misformulated the sentence, so I couldn't figure out a way to end it. I'm not gonna write down the words that they misspeak, the way that they misspeak them. That's the most idiotic thing. Who does that for an interview? And when I look at interviews done for the Oklahoma Historical Society, you got YTs all throughout of there that I was letting y'all hear. We heard that on one of my other ones where the lady was talking about there were so many black Indians in the school. Do you think the dude that was sitting there at the interview writing that shit down, all the words that she mispronounced, do you think that he wrote them down that way? Or is this people? In fact, let me say this. How many times in any of these books have I seen them write white people down in the ways that they talk stupid sometimes? Talking like Cletus from the goddamn rural areas in the backwoods. You don't see that type of shit. So when I saw, as soon as I saw that in the first book about Harriet Tubman, everything said, kiss my ass. I don't even want to read this book. But I'm gonna need to read a little bit of it because I can't discount it. It was written during the time that she was alive, so it would technically be somewhat a primary source, right? Anything during the time of her, but I have to read it to know whether or not it's fake. So I can't just discount it fully until I've gone through it all the way. And I don't want to read it, but I'm gonna skim through that bitch at some point. Let me see what else y'all been saying here. It says, "Oh yeah, talking to each other." Natchez. Let me look over here because Carmen was saying something. 39 ninjas now attack. 39 ninjas now attack attention. So now attract. Well, yeah, will attract attention. I know what you was trying to say. You attract attention. Yeah, right. Exactly. And they going up goddamn mountains and woods and rivers. So now, no way back then they could 39 ninjas that were sneaking went undetected. Exactly. And and they supposed to be going from house to house. No way these white T folks are putting 39 niggas, random niggas, in their house. Come on. I'm so glad you said the car. Ain't no way. Ain't no way that a YT man is letting 39 niggers in his house with him and his YT wife and kids. If you don't quit playing with me, okay? That's the big. That's yeah. I guess a red flag, right? Straight flag on the play, you know, and they supposed to be going house to house. You taking 39 niggas from house to house? Yeah, yeah. And you got guns on you too? So hold on. Y'all running up in white folks' houses with 39 niggas in pew pews and staying the night. Who fed these niggas the whole time? Hold up. Who fed these 39 niggas during this whole journey? Where'd y'all get the food? Look, I'm starting to look at this like the goddamn slave ship now. Where did you cram these niggas? Or was there a real underground railroad and y'all niggas had full motherfucking cafes in that bitch? I don't know. Okay. But we're gonna get back to the newspaper clip. Uh but it's sounding more absurd as we go. Said I doubt that's really even a true story. Exactly. Where did you get the water? Where did you get the water? I don't know what you mean by that, Rich. What did I say about? I said them going across the water, or I don't know what you mean by that, Rich. But yeah. So we're gonna get further into this. All right. So, and let me just say this: if Harriet Tubman story was real, I should easily find her in publications being interviewed. Yeah, we're interviewing Harriet Tubman, and here's the words Harriet Tubman said. Here's the word I said. Blah 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 blah. I should find newspaper clippings of Harriet Tubman is showing up to, and I found one or two of those. That's why I got to go look at other ones because I believe she could be a real person, but the story of her is fake. But because I saw like a couple of things that said she was speaking at a church, and I'm like, are these people lying about her speaking at a church? Is this a different Harriet Tubman? Well, they're talking about the same one. They're trying to say the whole Moses thing. So are they lying? Is it the right person? And they just made up the story. And so this lady's parading around because really she was a spy for the government. And now she's kind of going with this whole story, whatever. You know, I'm still like, that's why I'm like, I've seen too many conflictions of things to just say she's just not real as completely a real person. But even this Underground Railroad system, I have questions about. So let's keep going real quick. Peace Cypherborn said I'm talking about Harriet and 39 Ninjas. Where did they get drinking water? Ah, I see what you're saying, Rich. Yeah. I guess they had to drink water from them damn rivers. And none of them passed out, got sick from the water and the food that they was lacking. And I don't know. You know, all of these are good questions. All of these are perfectly good questions. And the more questions we ask, the more people try to make it seem like we crazy. But okay, let's keep going. He said, "Nah, she did that bullshit." And think about it. It could be kind of like what CR saying. So there's a few, like there, like as I go through this, I have my cloud of possibilities. It's possible she was a spy and she just made this story. They made this story up, made her into this hero to try to shoo away the fact that she was really spying on our people who was in the South, who was at the head of the South, and taking information back and forth, right? And now they're trying to prop her up as something else. Or it could be kind of like what CR the Great's talking about. You got somebody that's paid to purposely take niggas out of here to Canada as they try to get rid of Indians, right? And some of the Indians who may have been prisoners of war may have gotten caught up into that system. And then you have the other possibility that Harriet Tubman was just Harriet Tubman freeing some slaves to freedom in Canada. That's probably the most least likely thing, but you know, let's keep going. It says Capital North, exactly. What you say, Medici said, what if they were Indians, not African slaves? Exactly. The distraction was the orphan train was going on, and I didn't think about the ages of some of these folks. How many of these people could have been at the age of being orphans, and then now they're of an adult age or later, like teenage age, and now they're being enticed to go up to Canada? Because think about that too, you can manipulate somebody of a younger age who has been orphaned, doesn't really know what their family is, as far as they may remember some kind of semblance of being Indian, and then you get there and you had this black so-called Negro lady named Harriet Tubman saying, "Hey, little Negro boy, We can get you out of this. Yeah, yeah. You ever heard of Canada? Canada? Yeah. Let me tell you about it. Oh, okay. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Right. So you got to think about it because they only say that she helped 300 folks, and one, it's not a lot of folks. Two, um, especially out of there being millions of us here. But two, I'm gonna do this here for a minute because your boy about to give me a little puff. But two, uh, she wasn't really known. Like I really can't validate the amount of time she was on the so-called railroad, underground railroad. Like it may have was it throughout your ages of 20s, your ages of 30s? Was it before you got in the war and helped the army in 1860? Because from 1860 to 1865, they said that she was busy helping the goddamn army. So, I got questions, but let's keep going. Let's go through this. All right, so we just read that three people a dozen, all right, that people be showing up, bands of Negroes, paraded quietly in some of our cities by the agent, by the of the abolitionists, and shown to those from whom subscriptions are solicited as fresh imports. My bad. Hold on one second. All right, I'm back. I'm back. Had to get some water and grab an ashtray. All right. So fresh import. So they're talking about people coming in and they're parading these people after they get back from the Underground Railroad. The Negroes are always badly clad and apparently in a suffering condition. And sympathy being thus excited for them, a contribution follows as the matter of course. A contribution. Okay. So they parade according to them, they bring some. It's starting to sound like a scheme too. Is it a real underground railroad? Did they really save some people, or did they grab some niggas and bring them up there and parade them around for money? It could have been both, right? We're gonna see. Let's keep going. Mm. I'll put that out because I know y'all like to see you, boy. All right. So it says it is probable that in every instance the money is misapplied. Okay. The agent, as they put in quotation marks, let me make that bigger for you, is always a man who, without any visible means of support, makes himself well off. You realize, you see that? Let me highlight that in a different color for you. The agent is always a man who can't support himself and typically makes himself well off through this situation, through this company, through parading niggas around who got here from the Underground Railroad saying, hey, look, we got some fresh people here, some fresh imports that we free. Give us some more money. Okay. So now we're really starting to wonder what's going on, right? Okay. What up, Sage Burner? Said, oh shoot, remember the other document you read? The guy kept talking about the money he spent. I'm trying to think of which one that was. The money he spent. The money he spent. It's not striking me right now, but I'm glad it strike you. Hopefully, it strikes me so I can remember. That would be a good tie. Let me see here. What do you think about the Underground Railroad system they've found dating back 300 years? I haven't looked as much into this from the YouTube side. I haven't looked as much into the pneumatic trains, the underground stuff, as some of the people. But don't get me wrong, I've seen some of this stuff. There's a lot of YT folks on TikTok that go heavily into it, and I follow some of them. And I'm very intrigued about it. I am very intrigued about the old world. I know that there's a lot that they ain't telling us. But it is what it is, Could this be that were they using old paths that were used back then? I don't know. Let's keep going. Half a dozen idle hanger-ons find a living out of the funds, but the poor slave For whom the charity is craved, for whom I thought it said carved, but from whom the charity is craved, receives barely enough to carry him to the limit of his journey, and is set down a half-clad, half-starved beggar in a strange, inhospitable country, and congratulated on having achieved his freedom. Now, notice that. I said, wow. Now, as I read this, I also think of a mind of a, that there's the mind of these YTs out there that'd be like, you were better in slavery and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And you had better stuff and you had lived better and didn't have so many bills. I also think that he could be that type of YT dude. And when we read further on, you may think that too. But this could also be true. It shows here that the YT folks are bringing people in from this underground railroad, parading them around for money, getting fat off the money, and then the black people that they just brought in, they ain't getting but a small cut of it, and typically they end up out there begging and starving, even though they got their so-called freedom. So okay, let's keep going. This got real interesting at this point. And I said, okay, all right. It says a large portion of the money contributed to the Underground Railroad is given under a misapprehension of facts. It is believed by the donors to be an act of humanity to the Negro, and to be instrumental in the bettering of his condition. The little of it the little of it that is honestly expended on the fugitive from slavery only helps to remove him from a home where he is well provided for and happy, to plunge him into suffering and crime. The greater portion of it finds a way into the pockets of the idle scamps who are prominent as agents and collectors. But as you just saw there, it says that they're removing them from a fugitive slave from a happy home. You know, back in the day, listening to that, I would have said a happy home. Slavery, get the fuck out of here. Who's happy as a slave? But it depends on what type of slave they stole, right? Or enticed away. Because was it a indentured servant? Was it a apprenticeship? One of them forced apprenticeship? Was it a prisoner of war? Was it a normal slave? In some cases, the slave laws provided that you must treat your slave well, and you're not supposed to beat them, or you only for certain offenses. I wish I could pull it up, but I can't even think of which. But I also don't want to lose my spot. But I got something about that. But you can't do certain things to them for certain offenses, whip them for certain offenses. Otherwise, you would be fined. So, like, in comes like your eventual like stuff, like you got to like provide for your workers, like healthcare, all that other shit. It pretty much was kind of born out of that time. There were like certain set of laws and rules that were around slavery. So when I look at this, and as we know, slavery in a sense was just working in most cases, unless you was a prisoner of war through some kind of chattel system, if that happened to you. My so-called slaves so far that I found that admitted that they were slaves on my tree, which were two of them, they said they were full-blooded Indians, and and on top of that, they they were like 9 or 10 years old when they got enslaved. So is that a slave, or was that an orphan, or did y'all take out somebody's parents, or whatever the case may be, right? So I'm not gonna knock what he's saying here, but I also be like, but are you one of those people that's like, you just don't want niggas around and that's your excuse? But okay. Yet, owing to the liberal contributions of the North and the British abolitionists of late years, the stealing of Negroes, and notice how they said the stealing. And you could say that they're stealing if they're helping them move north, but I guess you could use that word. I was like, and they just really running away, or I guess in a sense you kind of stealing them. So I guess that's a good word to use. But I was about to say, that sounds pretty harsh. But from the border states has increased to an alarming degree until it has culminated in Brown's bold attempt to incite a servile insurrection in the entire state. Says it has been justly remarked offensive the most offensive feature of the recent wicked and murderous attack upon Virginia is the connection of British abolitionists in Canada with the principal actors in crime. But notice you're talking about British abolitionists. Remember the Book of Negroes. Let's see if if it'll tell us that. What is the Book of Negroes? The Book of Negroes, officially the inspection roll of Negroes, is a 1783 historical document listing of over 3,000 black loyalists, formerly enslaved people who escaped the British lines during the American Revolution and were evacuated from New York to where? Nova Scotia, Canada. It documented their names, ages, origins, whatever, whatever. So, the same British loyalists, British abolitionists could be different, but I keep that in mind as I go through this, right? It says in Canada with the principal actors of the crime. It says it is unquestionably true that these foreigners were aware of and abetted Brown's treason. No concealment of the fact is attempted by them at Chatham. The first meeting was held at which the plot was arranged, and with the money of Canadian abolitionists in his pocket, Brown went into Ohio to obtain recruits for the service. A half breed named Shad, funny, Shad, who publishes a paper at Chatham, was a prominent accomplice of Brown in his action prior to the Harper's Ferry attack. Although he was careful to keep a whole skin in Canada while the fighting was progressing in Virginia, within a week or two, a Canadian is reposted, or no, a Canadian is reported to have boasted at a meeting in Philadelphia that he had been an agent for Brown for the reception of fugitive slaves in Canada. The few men of Brown's party who escaped with their lives are at the present moment in Canada, where they are certain of protection from the people should they be demanded of the government as escaped murderers, whatever. Miriam, a YT, and a Negro whose name I do not know, both of whom were engaged in Harper's Ferry uh, affair, are at the present moment at Shad's house. Now, I want to say this real quick. What else, Worthy? Now people talk about the whole thing white meant this, landowner and stuff. Yes, but we got to talk about time frames, mind frames is what time frames and mind frames. Mind frame of the person who's writing this. Time frame also of when YT meant that en masse and when people started looking at so-called pale skinned folks and started not deeming them to be of that YT hue. At this time, I would say that they're saying right. This YT person is, but you also got to think, why is this person YT and the person Negro? How come they wasn't using the word black? Right? If we're going to go with colors, why is one in Spanish and the other one not? And these are the things that I think about every time I read these things, and they really kind of bug me because it's like, boy, they really did a number on us and fucked us up because they really just switched up a bunch of words, and now you got so many people in society over time who have written these words down, and you now we're trying to decipher what the fuck did this person mean. Now, right here, I do know they're not talking about, hey, a landowner and a Negro whose name I don't know. I do believe that they were talking about a YT pale skinned person, but I just had to throw that out there, and it's just, and this is 1860, so it would seem about right now. If this was like 1750, it could be around the landowner kind of situation. But it says, I do not know both the men engaged with Harper's Ferry affair are the at the present moment at Shad's house. Miriam is a young looking man, apparently not over 22 years of age, short and slightly built with a thin, hatchly looking face, very pale, and says right here, dude's pale, and no beard. He looks more like a consumptive schoolboy than a conspirator. The Negro is I believe, a Canadian. Hmm. Excuse me. The Negro, he believes, is a Canadian. He doesn't know. Could be an Indian, right? Likely is. Or he could be a Britain loyalist or whatever else, right? The Negro is, I believe, a Canadian and is tall, spare, wiry black, of the deepest dye. Now, notice there they use the word black, but they still call them Negroes. And that's what just really annoys me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, obviously black was a color as an adjective, but well, you're not calling people that because you're calling them Negroes, and so, but I don't know, you know what I'm saying? This shit gets really kind of annoying. But let's keep going. Of the deepest dye, they keep very quiet, and I could learn no particulars of their escape, except that they had been passed from house to house. And the reason why I did that is because that's what they do say about the Underground Railroad, right? By the friends until they reached Canada. Copy, it is said, it is the present at the house. What is hold on? Copy, it is said, is at present at a house a few miles from Toronto. One might well believe that this avowed cooperation and sympathy of British abolitionists with all of its horrors through a portion of the states of the Union. Now, let me go down here. We're just gonna go down to here, this part that I got highlighted, because you got quite a bit of context now to this point. So if I'm skipping a part, that's probably because there wasn't much there. But independent of these considerations, the question must present itself to every reflecting mind. Does the Negro himself derive any real benefit from being seduced from his Southern home and from his Southern master, and stolen and enticed from a state of servitude? Huh, and left to shift for himself in a strange land, uncongenial, in a strange, uncongenial country. Okay. Is society in general improved socially or morally by the introduction of fugitive blacks? Notice how they just use it interchangeably. They're fugitive blacks, they Negroes, yeah, okay, into the midst, while priceless liberty and galling bonds are invaluable aids in political harangues, or whatever that said, that however you say that word. The practical man who pays his hard dollar at the call of professional philanthropists to assist the poor slave may well inquire whether the object of his charity is actually beneficial or is injured or degraded thereby. So basically, you need to check to see if your money is even being put to good use. You donate money to this goddamn Underground Railroad Society, but you don't even know if it's even getting. You don't even know the situation that they're putting these so-called people into. Let me read over here. I done missed some of the folks over here on the YouTube side. It says the world's fairest was going. Oh yeah, the world's fairs was going on at the same time you telling the slave story. I didn't think about that. Yeah, them World Fairs was lasting on up to the 1900s, early 1900s. Facts, one of my ancestors was enslaved as a little girl American Indian. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So and that's happened in many of our families. And the more that we find those and don't find records of African slaves, the more we're gonna be putting that African shit to rest. No, they said exactly what they meant. I forgot what I read, but I know you're talking about. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me go down charity. Okay. The Underground Railroad is no. You know what? Let's take a break. I'm just not noticing. I forgot to play the rest of this. We're gonna take a break and finish the last little minute of this because it's funny. And remember, they say funny stuff. Now we checked him. He wasn't lying about her carrying a revolver. He didn't tell us the full story about her calling them N words and told him to move or be unalive, which is pretty crazy. But let's see what else they said.
Around 1820. Her exact birthday isn't
Never lost a pass
Let's
on
go
or
back.
you'll die. And everybody would move on. She brought over 300 people out of slavery like that on the Underground Railroad and never lost a passenger.
Harriet Tubman was born Harriet Ross around 1820.
Again, she was born Araminta Ross. For those who don't know, what is Harriet Tubman's real name? It's just an easy Google search, right? And there's other things that'll tell you this, but how this motherfucker didn't get there, I don't know. But
Her
okay.
exact birthday isn't known because, like many slaves, her date of birth was never recorded. She lived with her parents and 10 brothers and sisters on a plantation
What's up, Copper Chip
on the
boy?
eastern shore
What
of
up, Jackson?
Maryland. When Harriet was 5 years old, she was hired out as a domestic servant. She slept on the kitchen floor, poking her feet under the fireplace ashes when the nights grew cold.
Where did you read this? She slept on the kitchen floor, poking her foot out just slightly, ever so slightly toward the fireplace to ever so get a little bit of heat. What the fuck is wrong with these folks? Now, am I tripping? Even if Sarah Bradford said that in the book, do you think Harriet Tubman really said this shit? I remembers sleeping out there on the kitchen floors, trying to get my feet warm. These people be making shit the fuck up, man. This shit is so stupid, and it gets worse. Watch.
For meals, she shared table scraps with her master's dogs.
For meals, she shared table scraps with her master's dog. Let's just go to the book of Sarah Bradford real quick. Put the word dog in here real quick. Where y'all reading this shit? Is it really in there? The word dog appears 0 times in this book. Where the fuck did you read this? Hold on, let me see if there's any other books that I missed during her time frame. These niggas will say anything on these goddamn my documentaries. This is why I said, nigga, as soon as it came on, nigga, I had to go ahead and record it. I said, screen record, nigga, because that's absurd. And niggas need to hear this. Scenes of Harriet Tubman life book. Let me go back before she would have passed away. She passed away in like 1891. So I want to look any book written while she was alive. Everything else, I don't give a damn. The Sarah Bradford book, the Sarah Bradford book, and record a record of fugitive slaves. Alexander medical account ledger, and yeah, really just the Sarah Bradford book was the only book written about her, from what I'm seeing, during the time that she was alive. Besides this regular fugitive slaves, and yeah, it's not gonna be in there, right? I'm just gonna type the word dog anyway, just to have a laugh. Oh, the word dog's in there, but that's not the word dog. That's what it thought. It thought that was the word dog. Regular fugitive slaves, though, I've never seen this, and I kind of want to read something. Let's see. Dear, oh no, December 19th. Mary Curtis, 19 years of age, slave of being something of Chester County, Maryland, housemaid, husband, no, housemaid, looks like it says husbandry, possibly, for 4 years with a Mrs. Grant in Baltimore, where she was sent because her health, blah, blah, blah. Okay, health was thinning, whatever. Okay. Let me not get all caught off in the random shit. So, oh yeah, let me finish. Yeah, let's finish this. Let's
Her date of
come
birth
on.
was never recorded. She lived with her parents and 10 brothers and sisters on a plantation on the eastern shore of Maryland. When Harriet was 5 years old, she was hired out as a domestic servant. She slept on the kitchen floor, poking her feet under the fireplace ashes when the nights grew cold. For meals, she shared table scraps with her master's dogs.
Actual slavery was economic, it was legal, it was personal.
I need you to read a book, man, and quit coming up here with all this was is feel good shit. Actual slavery was economic, it was personal, it was violative, it was discriminatory. Let me get my book. I got more words. It was atrocious. It was horrendous. It was ma'am, this is not telling me a goddamn thing about Harriet Tubman.
It was a situation in which the slave had no rights. A person who was a slave.
Thank you, Mrs. Historian. You basically just told me the definition of a slave in the Webster's dictionary, and then you added the
Could
extras on
not
there.
walk down the next block without having someone else who owned her or who owned him say explicitly, yes, you may do that. A slave was someone who could be forced to.
No, don't do that. Like, come on now. That's what they looking for. That's what they looking for, a reaction out of you. And don't get me wrong. I have found even more recent, which is kind of funny. I found some newspaper articles where there were certain states and certain areas that instituted dumbass laws where it was like, yeah, you need a Negro, whatever, Negro mulatto Indian shall not pass from blah 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 without a note from his master. Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like what she's saying is not true, but it's just you're honing in on one story and blanketing it over the entire folks, even if you're not saying that. Like you're like, in many cases, they will say they're like, "Hey, slavery happened to everybody," and that's the end of this. I'm gonna get her off of here. Uh, but slavery, that's kind of what they do. Is like slavery happened to everybody, blah blah blah. But that's what I wanted. I haven't even. That's about as far as I watched. About 3 minutes. I gotta watch the other 58 minutes, however long it is. But and I will. I'm gonna listen to it while I do some work tomorrow. But it's the absurdness of these things, and it's shit like this that it's like I know it's a waste of time, but I can't properly come to my people and say, "Hey, I have literally studied almost everything I could about Harriet Tubman, even the bullshit, and I can confirm to you truthfully what I saw." That's really all I'm trying to do. And when I come across shit like that, I hate it, man. It's gonna be a whole bunch of fluff and bullshit. But okay, let's get back to this. So we y'all been laughing. So we can get this back in order, man. So back to the Underground Railroad. It says, hey, the Underground Railroad is no myth. A regular organization to which the name has been applied stretches through every free state in the Union and has agents and emissaries on the borders of every slave state, and along the routes traveled by fugitive slaves. It is a systemized association of Negroes and Republican abolition whites having for its object the enticing away of the slave property of the South and its safe transport into Canada. So we're going to move up to the next thing. But again, as you can see here, it says that there were Negroes and abolition whites that were doing this. And it starts to make you wonder, are these the which that's what sucks. By this time, they pretty much grouped everybody in their head when they talk about Negroes. But these could be British abolition, I mean British loyalist Negroes. Like, why would American Negroes be kicking it with these goddamn oh, that's a Republican abolitionist whites? I was thinking it was um British abolitionists, from what they said earlier. It's not as Republican. It's not so far fetched because, as we know, a lot of us were Republican back in the day. So I'm not. I'll take that one back. But let's keep going up. Now this is where it gets kind of crazy. All right. It says some idea of the shrewdness and unscrupulousness of the spectators engaged in the business may be afforded by the exposure of a trick now practiced week after week for the purpose of swelling the funds. Let me read that again. Some idea of the shrewdness and unscrupulousness of the spectators engaged in the business may be afforded by the exposure of a trick now practiced week after week for the purpose of getting some more money. Okay, what trick is this? Well, this is what it is: a gang of Negroes, numbering from 3 to 10, is gathered in New York. The men composing this gang are represented as fugitives from slavery. Okay. But it has been rumored that at times when runaways are scarce and money needed, any idle nigger will is hired to pass as an escaped slave. Let that sink in. They're parading any idle inwards in New York around as a fugitive slave in order to get money. Now you really got to call into question a whole lot of things that these people are willing to do. Willing to do anything for money, willing to do anything to erase your history, willing to lie profusely in your face, in everybody's face, in the public. Okay. These men, let's keep going. These men are exhibited to the charitable in New York by the agent of the Underground Railroad, and a story is told of their sufferings on the road. Is it true? Hey, did anybody ever really cross a motherfucker or I don't know, but this same guy that says this says that he did see people supposedly crossing. So I can't say that it is not real, but it's definitely sounding real and corrupt. It's almost like Red Cross. Yeah, they help a few niggas out somewhere. Somewhere. I ain't never seen them. You might see them come up to your job sometimes with a little shit, you know. When I used to work at call centers back in the day, the Red Cross would come up there, give you some pens and notebook papers and shit with the little Red Cross symbol and shit on it. Bitch, this ain't got nothing to do. You waste the goddamn money. I didn't ask for a goddamn pen. Go feed some Africans. All right. So let's keep going. The story is told of their sufferings on the road. Okay. Uh, of their present destitution and the lack of funds to help them onward on their journey to a land of freedom. So they're acting like they're in New York. They're in New York. Okay. The gravity it is. They're in New York somewhere. Right. Now the South is down here somewhere, right? Down in Virginia. Maybe they scrounge some niggas up out of Maryland or something. But they was talking about the Carolinas, if I'm not mistaken. I think Virginia. But they're parading niggas. They didn't go to the South. They'll parade niggas around here from New York and be like, hey, we brought some niggas from the South. We got some niggas that can. They only need a little bit further to go. Yes, yes. Give us some more money and we can finish the journey to Canada. That's fucked up. Now that you see it on a visual with the map, it's like, oh, that's fucked up. Lying bitches. Okay. Let's keep going though. Let's keep going. It says, it is seldom that the appeal fails. Seldom that this fails. And a snug sum is generally connected in New York to assist the fight of the fugitives to Canada. But as soon as these poor fellows flying so swiftly from oppression reach Albany, they are detained at that depot and again put to practical use as a means of raising money. So as soon as they get to Canada, they're detained, but then they still use them and parade them around for money like they did before. Hey, look, y'all, we just got some slaves up here. We just brought them in from the South. Y'all just got them niggas from New York from the South. That's south of Canada, right? Shit, we brought them from the South, bitch. Okay. The respectable colored agent, notice this is a colored agent they're talking about, which they've already referenced that they had colored agents, but this one in particular they're talking about right now, of course, is they talking about the color. The respectable colored agent of the Underground Railroad in that city once more parades them amongst the charitable. Okay, so the colored person, once they get up there, so in New York, they sit around acting like they done found some niggas from the South and they look for bread and they get the bread. Then they take them up to a motherfucker from New York to goddamn Canada and parade them around again and be like, look, man, look, told you we bring some niggas. We've been saving them like we've been telling you. Give us some of that money. And it works. Continues to work. The same tale of their sufferings and their destitution and the lack of means to help them into Canada is repeated. And another contribution is extorted from those who are inclined to credit the story. From Albany, the property, notice they put that in quotations, from Albany, the property is frequently transported to Troy. What did it just say? What's up, Nikki? Good evening to you. It says from Albany, the slaves are frequently transported to Troy. Now that's not that far of an underground railroad. That's not quite going down south, right? And there and at every city thence to Canada, to the Canada line. The same use is made of the poor fugitives, and the cash of the credulous flows into the pockets of the Underground Railroad spectators and remains there. The poor fugitive receives just sufficient to keep his body and soul together until the lands of Canada have him down as a beggar. Okay, so first of all, you done snatch some niggas off from New York, and you done snatch them from the goddamn South, and y'all doing this, and y'all sending them up there and doing this trickery. How has anybody ever seen this? Has anybody ever showed this in any Underground Railroad? Shit. I don't know. Maybe somebody has, but I'm just saying. This is why I do what I do. I don't knock anybody's research, and I only say this because everybody was in my a lot of people was in my comments on YouTube and Twitter about such and such already did this topic, such and such already. I can guarantee you I'm still gonna find something. I'm gonna find some stuff you ain't never seen. Um, Likely. Not on every topic, but maybe on every topic. I'm pretty damn confident in my goddamn research game, goddamn it. Fuck with your boy. But so is a lot of our folks. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just me. But I'm just saying, like, who knew that there was a scheme of going back and forth, taking niggas back and forth from New York to Canada and parading them around, lying about it, uh, as if in order to get underground railroad food money. I said food, underground railroad money. Let's see, large black Louis Sora Nero is conservative the culture, the War of 1812. That really is past that. And I think this was different too. He was kidnapped in Kentucky, purged of his freedom, Underground Railroad furnishes them. Yeah, it kind of switched up, but because as you can see, the heading changes. The Elgin Association for that one in particular. And this is the Negroes in Canada. And I did read it, as you can see, but it wasn't necessarily about the Underground Railroad. So I'm gonna stop with this particular part here. So for the most part, what's up, Geechee boy? Um, yeah, live for yourself, exactly, Carmen. And I implore y'all to look for yourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though I'm talking about all this research and I can act like I'm just doing shit tons and tons. Look, y'all can still find stuff I ain't found either on this same topic. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't gonna lie, I do read a lot and I'm pretty thorough, but I will skim over. Like if it's like if it's like 2,000 newspaper clippings, you crazy as fuck if you think I'm about to go through 2,000 newspaper clippings. I'm about to skim through hundreds of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna skim through hundreds of them, but so that's why there's always a possibility of some error or something. But once you skim through hundreds on a particular topic, you pretty much get what you're looking for. Would you when you talk about newspaper clippings? But you don't just stop at newspaper clippings either, right? Then you go look for books about the same thing, manuscripts or documents or whatever. There's many kind of different avenues for getting this information, but or to get the information and to get more information about the same topic. That's what I'm trying to say, because you just don't want to stop at one particular source. All right, so I'm trying to think of what I was gonna move on to from here. Maybe hold on, I'm gonna look for one of these. I've been looking right now, just so you can still know what I got going on. Oglethorpe. So Oglethorpe came into South Carolina around the time of pretty much when the first folks started getting it, when the first YT folks, or even if they weren't YT, some of the first folks started coming over into South Carolina around the mid 1700s. And Oglethorpe, and then we'll talk about Alexander Garden. But I didn't really find a lot on Alexander Garden. But Oglethorpe, he has a college. There's a college called Oglethorpe College. And it's actually, they used to be known as the Yamacraws. And the Yamacraws are the Indian tribes, which is a section from the Yamasees that was friendly to Oglethorpe and they folks and stuff like that. Tomochichi was the name of the whatever. But this was one of the first. So he came around 1732. This was when he kind of first got there into South Carolina. And there's Oglethorpe. And I noticed that he's an Esquire, ESQ. And for those who don't know what an Esquire is, we'll just pull it up real quick. Esquire is a shield bearer, a attended young man in training to be a knight, groom, From medieval secretary, shield bearer, guardsman, um, a young guardsman in training to be a knight, basically. Okay. Um, a squire is similar to it. Originally, the feudal rank below knight, since broadened to a general title. Now, that doesn't tell you exactly. It's like, okay, well, an esquire is a knight in training, right? Well, what is a knight? We got an idea based upon whatever bullshit in our head. Same with me, right? But Old English, shint boy, servant, boy, youth, servant, attendant, a word common. See, this ain't what you probably had in your head. This is not what you had in your head when I can guarantee you that when I first said what is a knight, right? And even when you come down here, that's the verb for it. But to knight somebody. But boy, youth, servant, attendant, a word common in the nearby Germanic languages of unknown origins, boy, youth, lad, uh, the meaning military follower of the king or other superior is from 1100. So they're saying that this would be the meaning for that knight in particular. But did you know knight originally meant boy, youth, servant, attendant? I didn't. It says it began to be used in specific military sense in the Hundred Years' Wars and gradually rose to in importance until it became a rank in the nobility from 16th century. Hence, in modern British use, a social privilege or honorary dignity conferred by a sovereign as a reward without regard from birth or deeds at arms. But basically, then it talks about knight in shining armor and all that other stuff. Appreciate that, Nikki. I'm just not looking over that way. Much love to you, Nikki. I appreciate that. Much hearts out to you. um. So yeah, yeah. So you got that your idea of a night is got to be different depending on what they're writing. At this time, I would say you got an esquire. This would be a military. To me, this is the squire. Esquire is a knight in training. Your knight is going to be people that answer to the king. And basically, a squire is somebody that also answers to the king, right? If he's a knight in training, who's he answering to? He's answering to whoever the knight is answering to. So going back to this, Oglethorpe, the esquire who is over here and who's called the honorary this, and they speak of him so highly. Why would they be speaking of him so highly? Because he's right there next to the so-called king. Okay. Another thing I would notice as I was looking into this is look at this. Let me get my little pointer out. Now, y'all know what a mingo is. Some of y'all know what a mingo is. But this says, this is just to forewarn all persons whosoever not to employ two Negroes. What are these Negroes' names? One's name is Mingo. The other one is Norwich. Now, Norwich could easily be a European Negro, right? I haven't heard of too many Norwiches, but we know what a Mingo is, right? What up, Cuzzo? What up, Hitch? Appreciate that, Alicia Faye. Much love to you. Appreciate that. Say doesn't mean lawyer because a lot of lawyers are esquire. I didn't know that, but you know what? I didn't think about that because I heard that the lawyers have to go through the bar exam, and I heard the bar exam is through the British such and such, the British whatever, which are under the king, right? So that could be a thing. I'd have to look a little bit further into that. But lawyers do let me just ask. Does the lawyer bar system have something to do with Britain? Brit And yes, the lawyer bar system is directly rooted in British legal traditions. So yeah. I would say that yeah, these people are pretty much learning, even though they may not be as corrupt. They're pretty much learning under a system and have to be approved under a system through the same king and queens. So that makes sense why they're using Esquire. Now, are they really knights in training? Do they know that? Do they know personally what they are? To be honest, it's possible. I said, you said you have an ex named Mingo. Say, and he Mingo. Let me get back on that. Mingo, for those who don't know, and you know what? I'm gonna show you that instead of showing you in this way, I'm gonna show you through a newspaper clip. And he's a Negro on here. Let's see, Mingo. Oklahoma is a noted Mingo. And when you come down here, he says he was a Mingo or chief, basically saying the names are interchangeable. So here we have for sure the word Mingo as a word chief, and you got a man with the name Mingo. Now, is that a chief that you're trying to say people don't need to buy from or employ? Possibly so. You know what I'm saying? Possibly so. I there, I'm just saying that I don't think there's any other reason for it to be there, unless it's more modern time. Like you say, Alicia, she said her boyfriend had the name Mingo. And then as far as on the Oglethorpe thing, I'm still kind of looking through things. I'm not gonna hold y'all up too much more tonight. That's why I was saying, like, I'm like in an in between time on research, and I don't like to really come to y'all unless I have like definitive stuff. But I also don't like to leave y'all lagging too long, so y'all can get some good game in, and and all that good stuff. But like a lot of my most recent research has been on Harriet Tubman. And then at one point I was like, I kind of got to get off this Harriet Tubman thing. Do I really want to invest this much time when I got all these other topics? Like, I really need to be reading about the 1812 war. I need to be reading about the Civil War. I need to, because I really kind of skipped over the wars and read through documents and history on other things around those eras, because I knew I was going to focus on those wars specifically for those particular times. But I didn't want to focus on the war without knowing all the context both before and after the war. Because when I read the war, because these are supposed pivotal events, um, I'll have a better grasp of what I'm reading about it, instead of and what's going on in the world at the time, instead of just kind of going at it blindly. So I've been doing a lot of study on Harriet, but then I got back onto my Yamasi studies, because I was like, well, shit, I do need to finish up this Yamasi, but you know what I'm saying? I can't put it to the side, to the back burner forever. And so I got back on that. That's why I started looking up Oglethorpe. That's why I'm also looking up the slave and Indian documents, things of that nature. And the main things that I'm finding with Oglethorpe that you're gonna find is like right here. He has some hostage Indians. Okay. Uh, that's a whole nother thing. You got Tomo Chichi. Remember I said the Yamakra right there. Yamakra. Tomo Chichi is right there. And they also got his nephew. And in here, they talk about sending some of these people off to England, three of which were carried off to England by Sir Alex Cummings. Okay, chiefs of the Upper Creeks. I'm sorry, Upper Cherokees. Three chiefs of the Upper Cherokees were sent off to England. Okay. Sam, when you get a chance, check out Supreme Court case 191, United States heirs of Henry Turner. Okay, okay. I may have to check in it. I want to say, have I heard something about that? Um, I'm not sure. I can't sure about what up, hot boy. What's happening with you? Yeah, it's not ringing the bell, but it's something I may have to look into. Put in the back burner in my head, but I got so much stuff. I ain't even gonna lie. I ain't even gonna lie. Shit, I know that's right. My favorite class on TikTok. Appreciate that. Oh, Nick, would you say thank you? all about learning more from you. I appreciate that, Nikki. Much love to all of y'all, man. Much love to all of y'all always coming in, getting the game, appreciating the live streams, and especially to a lot of my amazing core followers like Nikki, Alicia, all of y'all, Monet, and not just the girls. You got my boys like Hot Boy, Geechee Boy up there, Catnap Man was had it, you know what I'm saying? C3 up in the house. Everybody, all y'all. I go through this whole thing. Crew cut up in here. I missed crew cut came up in here. I didn't see that. My bad. And then, see Be for all everybody been up in here, man. I appreciate all of y'all. Much love. Empress. How can I forget the Empress and Shannon? Man. So we got people being taken off. You know what I'm saying? From here, but I already knew that. I kind of already knew because that was Tomo Chichi's story. Um, they send his people off, and I'm trying to dig further on that. Trying to dig further on Oglethorpe, and just to also show you, I was trying to dig further on this nigga Alexander Garden because that dude's name was on the where are you at? This. So this document that I've been showing y'all like crazy, the foreign parts, Negro Indian slaves, masters hiring a Negro to train them as schoolmasters over the Negro and Indian slave children and put them in there together. And then eventually we got down to the church wardens, and I went on the whole church warden uh a rabbit hole, which it unveiled a lot. That's how I knew what a squire was, your church warden, your parish parishioners, your vestrymen, your fucking, it's a whole hierarchy of these people who now have different names, politicians, representatives, the same shit, different shit. But Alexander Garden, there he is right there. I was like, you know what? Let me look more about this Alexander Gordon. Like, who the fuck was that? And so I mean, I went through looking up newspaper clippings about Alexander Garden. Um, where the hell is he at? Oh yeah, it's further down this way. Started looking up different things. I don't even think I found much yet that was really that important. Right here, you can tell it was like, okay, who is he? Now you see how it says, Your Excellency, most dutiful and obedient servants. You'll go over here. Who are they talking about? To His Excellency James Glenn, Esquire. So even though his Majesty's Captain, General, Governor, and Commander in Chief in and over the province of South Carolina. So you have a Esquire here. So you can now I'm like, oh, an Esquire is a pretty high level thing. Like I'm thinking it's like a knight in training, but you must be pretty high up there. They done made your ass the motherfucking governor, captain, general, commander in chief of the whole motherfucking state. So, the knights might be back over there in Europe, is what I'm getting to. The esquires is over here. The knights is over there directly with the king and queen type shit. I don't know. But as you can see, this is kind of starting to give us whatever. So Oglethorpe was an esquire, which means Oglethorpe was what? A governor, commander in chief, likely some of the same titles, right? But then you come over here, who was Alexander Garden? He was a commissary. Now, we thought commissary just meant a nigga getting some ramen noodles in jail. You know what I'm saying? I had to go look that shit up. I was like, commissary. But obviously, I don't know my goddamn own language that I speak. Commissary. One who is of special duty. Well, no, one to whom special duty is entrusted by a higher power. From medieval Latin, entrusted. Commentary. So, yeah. I don't know how the hell ramen noodles and Dorito chips got called commissary in jail or whatever, but it is basically somebody giving you special duty or entrusting you with a special duty or higher power. So Alexander Glenn, he's been entrusted as a higher power as the commissary, but obviously he still pales in comparison to he still falls under the superior of the esquires, is what I wanted to get to. Then you got him over here. He was the treasurer. That's what I wanted you to notice there. I was like, oh, he was the treasurer. He was also lending out money. It says several thousand pounds currency is to be let at interest by the vestry of the parish of St. Thomas. Now, what does this mean? They're lending money at interest. But who's lending money? The vestry. Well, who's the vestry? Well, let's look at that. Let me see if I can find that goddamn newspaper clipping. I didn't come prepared for this. I'm just kind of freestyling right now, but I can find it. Where you at? If I type it in, will it find it? Vestry. Damn it! I hate like the newspapers. Sometimes you just don't find the things that you know the words in there like you wanted to. Because my this search part is really amazing when it can work. I'm trying to think of another word that it might find in there. Vestry. The vestryman parish. God damn it. That's before. Let me go look one more time. Because the reason why I want you to know about who the vestryman is, because then you got to ask, where does the vestryman get money to lend out? Okay. Where you getting this bread from? Well, the vestryman, well, first, the vestry. What is the vestry? The vestry a room or outbuilding attached to a church for keeping of clerical vestments and other church property. So, where do the vestrymen who are attached to the commissary, who's right up under the esquire, where do they get their money? The church. But that's why I got to find this. But where does some of the money come from? It came from your ass. Whether it be tithes, whether it be remember, this is what I'm looking for. I'm gonna spoil it, but this is what I'm looking for is remember that newspaper article I was showing you, and it was like, hey, church was instituted on Sundays, and if you didn't show up on church by law, you could be put on the stocks in public to be publicly humiliated, but also you would forfeit your property. And it said that half of it would go to the vestryman, if I'm not mistaken, and half would go to the church warden, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I'm trying to say. So they get money off of the bullshit laws they instituted against upon your folks, and the money that comes in, they lend that shit out to interest like a motherfucker. Why can't I find that goddamn newspaper article? Is that it? This is it. Yeah. This is it. All right. Top yellow part. Okay. What's up, Cindy Survivor? Top my bad. I'm gonna cut a little longer. I'm gonna make sure I look at y'all. It says in Sunday's letter, some very interesting notes were given of the very earliest laws enacted in North Carolina. These being by the Palatine. Who is the Palatine? The Lords Proprietors and the Grand Assembly. What is a proprietor? Proprietor. Owner by royal grant of an American colony. So the lords proprietors are the people that the Lord has granted to be over a American colony. Almost like your esquires, right? Your squires. Um, okay. And the Grand Assembly, which then met any and everywhere, there being no fixed seat of government. So this is before there was any government. Much attention was given to the matter of marriages, for a great many thousands of people lived together in wedlock without any ceremony, as there were scarcity. Let's go down to where they start talking about the vestrymen. They start talking about how they wanted to get these people married, all this other stuff. People out here shacking up. We got to do something about it. Uh, let's see. Poor vestryman. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Kingdom and Red, the Kingdom Charles Foreign Pascal Tank. Okay, here we go. Here we go. It says a law which stood on the books until 1741 established the Church of England. Here, this setting forth that North Carolina was a member of the Kingdom of Great Britain, and that the Church of England was the only established church to have public encouragement in it, and expressing gratitude of the society for promoting the Christian religion in foreign parts. The law divided the parts of the state, then settled into 9 parishes, as follow the whatever they give names of parishes. Now in blue it says a vestry of 12 men was named for each parish. So each parish has 12 men vestry in their churches, in each church. Among the vestrymen, so a vestryman would be a man who is one of those people in that go into that little room in the church. Among the vestrymen were such noted men as George Clay. They basically give some names, right? It says any vestryman who was a dissenter and did not believe in the Church of England forfeited such and such pounds, English money in 1740. Okay, so we know who the vestrymen are. And we know that they're talking about churches and all that stuff, right? So now, let me see if I can find that part about the what you call it. Lawfully married, the laws, right here. I was trying to highlight it, but it says, whoops. Well, hell, if I'm gonna do that, I might as well do this. It says the law as to the observance of Sunday, right, was also made very strict, and heavy fines were imposed together with forfeitures, and the property of the delinquents was to be levied upon the by distress. And if the offender could not pay the penalties, basically your property, your literal house, could be levied upon your money that you owe them for the fines that they're putting against you. And if you can't pay the fines, pay the penalties, he or she was to be set publicly in the stocks for 3 hours. The forfeiture went to the church warden of the parish, who gave half to the informer and half to the poor. Oh, half to the informer and half to the poor. So it went to the church warden, not the vestry. So I was wrong about that. But the church warden's right there with the vestry. And I'm pretty sure there's somewhere in here I can find that money goes to these vestrymen. I may have to read this whole thing because there was other little fines and little shit in there. So, but your church wardens are right there under the vestryman. Your church warden would be like your pastor, or it could be a district pastor, and you have head pastors of each church that are independent as well. So church wardens kind of depends. They could be the head church pastor, dude, whatever, or they could be like at this time because there were so few churches, they could be the actual pastor in that particular church. But that pastor had to answer to the vestrymen, and the vestrymen were appointed, as we saw, by the Palatine, where let's say from the church. It says the yeah, from the Church of England. The Palatine from the Church of England establishes, it says the law divided, which the law came from them, divided the parishes, and then from there it says a vestry 12 men was named for each parish along with that. So it would be them. And then it talks about some Quakers and other shit. But I'm gonna look even more so into how these vestrymen did get paid, but I know I've seen it somewhere. I got mixed up a little bit with the church wardens, but still, you know, it's a really crazy thing that it's already bad that they instituted these laws under our people in order to erase our history, mix us in with the Negroes that were from Europe, and try to get us to erase the real spirituality that we had. But on top of that, the harsh penalties end up being money going toward these folks. And then these people just turn around and they make a living off of just lending it back out to you for interest. Like, appreciate that money you just gave me. Let me give you that back, and you better pay it back. Plus 20%. So it's pretty crazy. So I'm gonna get off here, y'all, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, I was all over the place. I'm still going in on these. I'm gonna stick on the Harriet Tubman topic. I may deviate from it for a minute as I try to finish up more of this Yamasi. Like right now, I need to stay heavy on the Oglethorpe topic. And there was another word, another thing. Oh, Tomo Chichi's nephew. I really need to figure out the books about that mention him. Read those books, figure out his journey, because I believe he might have been one of the first country born Negroes or one of our Indians that they sent over there to England to learn the Christian church, Christian ways, all that stuff, come back over here and to teach it to us and propagate it, because that's what they were looking for. They were looking for people to do stuff like that. So I appreciate y'all being here. Hold on, you say train lines have been on the making content for centuries. I can believe that. I could believe that. The name Ross was being used to standardize the track the melanated started in 1852. The Bill of Sale, minty generic name for runaway, and add Harriet's home ruler. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. What up, Akila? Say amen, say amen. Thank you, Samuel. Always a pleasure. Anyways, so I appreciate you, Carmen. Always great having you. Always great having you. I appreciate you being there on the YouTube side of the game, giving me my support over there, because I know I need it over there. It don't be popping as much as TikTok be popping and Twitter, but I love y'all over there, man. Y'all definitely be over there tough. And yeah, appreciate that, Big How. He said Big Yamasi. Hell yeah. Yeah, buddy, man. So yeah, I'm about to get off here, y'all, man. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night. I'm over here starving. I'm about to get something to eat.